Welcome to Lesson 8 of Week 13, focusing on prior approval requests. This lesson covers the situations where you must obtain funder permission before taking certain actions with your grant. Grant awards come with terms and conditions that define what you can do. Some actions are permitted without additional authorization. Others require you to ask permission first. Acting without required approval creates compliance problems even if the action itself was reasonable. Prior approval requirements exist because funders need visibility into significant changes. They invested in a specific project with specific personnel pursuing specific activities. Major deviations from that plan require funder awareness and agreement. Prior approval is not bureaucratic obstruction, it is the mechanism for modifying your agreement with the funder. When circumstances change and your original plan no longer fits, prior approval processes let you adapt appropriately. This lesson teaches you what actions typically require prior approval, how to request approval effectively, how to time your requests appropriately, and what to do when urgent situations arise. Understanding these requirements prevents compliance problems and enables appropriate flexibility. Prior approval exists for important reasons that benefit both funders and recipients. Understanding these reasons helps you approach the process constructively. Funder oversight maintains visibility into significant changes. Program officers need to understand what is happening with their awards. When you propose major changes, prior approval processes ensure funders know about and agree to modifications. This visibility supports effective program management. Agreement modification provides a formal process for changing award terms. Your grant award is essentially a contract. You propose to do certain things, and the funder agreed to support that plan. When you need to change the plan significantly, prior approval formally modifies the agreement. Both parties are then operating from the same updated understanding. Risk management ensures changes do not compromise project integrity. Some proposed changes might undermine project success or raise concerns the funder should evaluate. Prior approval allows funders to assess whether proposed changes are advisable and to suggest alternatives if needed. Accountability documents decisions and authorizations. When prior approval is granted, there is a record. This documentation protects you if questions arise later. You can demonstrate that you acted with authorization. Without prior approval, you bear the risk of unauthorized changes. Certain types of changes commonly require prior approval across most funders. Knowing these categories helps you recognize when to request permission. Change in PI or key personnel requires approval because funders make awards based partly on who will conduct the work. If the PI changes, the funder must agree to the new leadership. Key personnel changes may also require approval depending on their role. Reduced effort by key personnel beyond certain thresholds often requires notification or approval. Change in scope requires approval when you significantly alter project objectives or approach. If you want to study a different population, use different methods, or pursue different aims, the funder needs to approve. Minor adjustments within your approved scope may be fine, but major redirections require authorization. Budget transfers above certain thresholds require approval. Moving funds between budget categories is often permitted up to a point. Beyond that threshold, you need approval. Common thresholds are 25% of the total budget, or the amount of the most recent budget period, but specific thresholds vary by funder. No-cost extensions let you continue working beyond your original project end date using remaining funds. Most funders allow one no-cost extension with minimal process, but additional extensions usually require approval with justification. Additional categories of prior approval address specific types of changes or expenditures. These requirements vary by funder and program. Pre-award costs are expenses incurred before the award effective date. Sometimes you need to start work before your official award arrives. Pre-award spending may be allowed, but typically requires authorization and carries risk since you spend before knowing if the award will materialize. Carry forward moves unspent funds from one budget period to the next. Some funders require approval for any carry forward above a threshold, while others allow automatic carry forward. Understanding your specific award's requirements prevents problems when budget periods change. Foreign travel using grant funds may require prior approval. International travel raises various considerations, including research security, cost reasonableness, and program appropriateness. Some programs restrict foreign travel entirely, while others just require advance notification. Equipment purchases not in your approved budget typically require approval. Equipment is a separate budget category with specific definitions. If you want to purchase equipment not originally planned, you may need to justify the need and obtain approval, especially for significant purchases. Expanded authorities provide pre-authorization for certain actions that would otherwise require case-by-case approval. Understanding expanded authorities helps you know what flexibility you have. Delegated approvals mean some actions are pre-authorized by regulation or award terms. Rather than requiring each recipient to request approval for common changes, funders delegate authority for those changes to recipient organizations. Your institution can approve certain modifications without going back to the funder. 2 CFR 200, the Uniform Guidance, provides certain flexibilities for federal awards. These include authority for limited budget rebudgeting, one-time no-cost extensions, and pre-award costs within specified limits. These regulatory provisions establish a baseline of flexibility for most federal grants. Agency variations expand or restrict these baseline authorities. Some agencies provide greater flexibility than the minimum required by regulation. Others are more restrictive. NIH expanded authorities differ from NSF policies, which differ from Department of Education rules. Do not assume one agency's approach applies to another. Your NOA terms control what you can actually do. The specific award terms and conditions in your notice of award determine your authority. Expanded authorities may be referenced, restricted, or modified in your award. Always check your specific terms. Timing of prior approval requests matters significantly. Submitting at the right time enables smooth processing. Before acting is the fundamental rule. Prior means before. You must receive approval before making the change, not after. Retroactive approval is generally not available, and requesting it after the fact raises questions about your compliance awareness. Plan ahead so you can request permission before you need to act. Reasonable lead time allows the funder to review and decide. Complex requests may require weeks for evaluation. Simple requests might be processed faster. Build sufficient lead time into your plans. Contacting your program officer to understand typical processing times helps you plan appropriately. Budget period timing affects certain requests. No-cost extension requests, for example, must be submitted before your project period ends. Carry-forward requests may need to be submitted before a budget period closes. Understand deadlines associated with your specific requests. Emergency situations require immediate communication. If circumstances force you to act urgently, contact your program officer right away. Explain the situation, request authorization, and document the conversation. Acting in emergencies without any communication is riskier than acting with at least verbal acknowledgement from your program officer. Effective prior approval requests include specific components that enable informed decision-making. Clear description specifies exactly what change you are requesting. Vague requests create confusion and delay. State precisely what you want. If requesting a budget transfer, specify from which category to which category and how much. If requesting a key personnel change, identify the person and the nature of the change. Justification explains why the change is necessary or beneficial. What circumstances led to this request? Why is the original plan no longer optimal? What will be gained from the proposed change? Strong justification helps reviewers understand your reasoning and supports approval. Impact analysis describes how the change affects the project. Will objectives still be achievable? Does the change affect timeline? Are there any risks or concerns? Demonstrating that you have considered implications thoughtfully shows responsible management. Supporting documentation provides information supporting your request. For personnel changes, you might include biographical sketches of new personnel. For budget transfers, you might include revised budget justification. For no-cost extensions, you might include progress summary and remaining activities. Documentation substantiates your request. PI change requests require particular attention because principal investigator identity is fundamental to awards. Complete departure means the PI is leaving the institution or project entirely. This is the most significant change because it removes the person the funder entrusted with the award. You must identify a suitable replacement, provide their qualifications, and explain how project continuity will be maintained. The funder may approve the change, transfer the award to another institution, or terminate the grant. Reduced effort occurs when the PI decreases involvement below specified thresholds. Many awards require PI commitment of a certain percentage. If circumstances require reducing that commitment, prior approval may be needed. Explain why effort is decreasing and how the project will still succeed with reduced PI involvement. Temporary absence situations like sabbaticals, leave, or extended illness require notification or approval depending on duration and award terms. Extended absences affect project oversight. Identify who will manage the project during absence and ensure appropriate arrangements are in place. Required documentation typically includes biographical sketches for any new personnel and statements of commitment. When changing PI, the new PI's qualifications must be demonstrated. Updated other support information may also be required to identify any potential conflicts or duplications. Budget modification requests require understanding thresholds and restrictions that apply to your award. Threshold calculations determine when approval is required. Common thresholds allow rebudgeting up to 25% of total budget without approval, but thresholds vary. Know your specific limits. Calculate whether your proposed change exceeds the threshold. Remember that thresholds may be based on total award or individual budget period amounts. Category restrictions apply additional rules to certain budget lines. Participant support costs, for example, are often restricted and cannot be rebudgeted for other purposes without specific approval. Equipment, foreign travel, and indirect costs may have their own restrictions. Check category-specific rules. Cumulative tracking monitors all changes across the project. A series of small changes that individually do not exceed thresholds might cumulatively exceed limits. Track all budget modifications so you know your cumulative rebudgeting position. Multiple small changes can add up to significant reallocation. Revised budget justification explains how funds will be used after the change. When requesting budget modification, provide narrative explaining the new planned expenditures. Help the reviewer understand why reallocation is appropriate and how the new budget supports project success. No-cost extension requests let you continue working beyond the original project end date using remaining funds. First extensions are often allowed with minimal process under expanded authorities. Many federal programs allow a one-time extension of up to 12 months by simply notifying the program officer before the project end date. This flexibility recognizes that projects commonly need additional time to complete planned activities. Additional extensions beyond the first usually require formal prior approval. You must submit a request explaining why more time is needed and what specifically will be accomplished during the extension. Multiple extensions raise questions about project management and whether the project should simply be closed. Maximum duration limits how much total time can be added. A common limit is 1 year total extension, though some programs allow more. Understand the limits for your specific award so you can plan accordingly. If you need more time than the maximum allows, discuss options with your program officer. Justification explains why extension is needed and what will be accomplished. Good justification describes what prevented completion, what activities remain, and what the timeline for completion looks like. Simply saying you want more time is insufficient. Demonstrate specific plans for the extension period. Change in scope requests address significant departures from your approved project plan. These requests require careful consideration. Defining scope change means identifying when a change is significant enough to require approval. Adding entirely new aims, switching to a different target population, or fundamentally changing your methodology would clearly constitute scope changes. But the line is not always obvious. Gray areas exist where changes may or may not constitute scope change depending on interpretation. Expanding your sample to additional sites might be routine or might be a scope change depending on the nature of the expansion. Shifting emphasis between aims might be fine or might be significant. When uncertain, seek guidance. PO consultation helps navigate uncertain situations. If you are wondering whether something is a scope change, contact your program officer and discuss. describe what you want to do, and ask whether it would require prior approval. This conversation protects you and gives the program officer appropriate visibility. Documentation needs for scope change requests typically include revised specific aims and updated project narratives. You need to explain the proposed new scope clearly so the funder can evaluate it. Supporting justification, explaining why the change is warranted and how it supports the original goals helps make the case. Submission methods for prior approval requests vary by funder and request type. Using the correct method ensures your request is processed properly. Electronic systems handle many requests through grants management portals. NIH uses ERA Commons for many prior approval actions. NSF uses research.gov. These systems provide structured forms, track submissions, and document approvals. Learn the electronic systems for your awards. Written requests in the form of formal letters may be required for some changes. Major changes like PI transfers or significant scope changes might require formal written requests addressed to specific offices. These letters become part of the official award file. Follow format guidance provided by the funder. Email requests handle some minor requests directly with the program officer. Simple notifications or questions about whether approval is needed might be handled via email. Keep records of email exchanges for your files. Even informal communications should be documented. Following funder guidance ensures you use the correct method. Different funders and different request types have different submission requirements. Check the specific guidance for your funder and request type. Using the wrong method can delay processing or result in requests not being received. Understanding processing times helps you plan effectively and know when follow-up is appropriate. Variable timelines mean processing time varies significantly by request type and funder. Simple notifications might be acknowledged within days. Complex requests requiring program review might take weeks or months. Ask your program officer about typical processing times so you can set realistic expectations. Status checking monitors your request through appropriate channels. Electronic systems often provide status tracking. You can see when your request was received and whether it is pending, under review, or decided. For requests submitted other ways, you may need to inquire about status directly. Deadline awareness ensures you know when you need a decision. If you need approval before a certain date, make this clear in your request. Submit early enough that normal processing will produce a decision in time. Waiting until the last minute creates problems if processing takes longer than expected. Professional follow-up is appropriate if response is delayed beyond expected time frames. A polite inquiry asking about status is reasonable. Reference your request, note when it was submitted, and ask whether additional information is needed. Do not be overly aggressive, but do not simply wait indefinitely either. Sometimes prior approval requests are denied. How you respond to denial affects your relationship and options. Understanding reasons helps you learn from denials. Ask for explanation of why your request was not approved. Was there a problem with justification? Did the proposed change raise concerns? Was the request outside what the funder can approve? Understanding reasons informs any potential revision. Addressing concerns through revised requests may resolve objections. If the denial was based on specific concerns that you can address, consider submitting a revised request. Provide additional information, modify your proposed approach, or otherwise respond to the issues raised. Some denials become approvals when concerns are addressed. Alternative approaches may achieve your goals within permitted boundaries. If your preferred approach is not approvable, consider alternatives. Can you accomplish similar objectives through different means? Can you modify your plan to stay within approved parameters? Creative problem solving may identify acceptable paths forward. Accepting outcome is sometimes necessary because some denials are final. If the funder determines that what you want to do is not appropriate, you may need to accept that decision. Continuing to push after a clear final decision damages relationships. Respect the outcome and move forward within approved boundaries. Let us summarize the key points from this lesson on prior approval requests. Prior approval maintains proper authorization for significant changes. Acting without required approval creates compliance problems regardless of whether the underlying action was reasonable. Prior approval processes ensure you and the funder agree on modifications before they occur. This mutual understanding protects everyone. Essential practices include submitting requests before taking action, providing clear justification for why changes are needed, and allowing adequate processing time. Build prior approval considerations into your project planning. When you anticipate changes, begin the approval process early enough for timely decision. Know your award terms because they specify what requires approval. 2 CFR 200 provides baseline guidance, but your specific NOA and funder policies control. Expanded authorities may provide flexibility, or terms may be more restrictive. Read your award documents and contact your sponsored programs office or program officer when uncertain. In our next lesson, we cover audit readiness, preparing your grant for potential review by auditors or oversight personnel. You will learn what auditors look for, how to maintain audit-ready records, and how to respond appropriately if audit occurs. Practice exercise. Review your current award terms and identify all prior approval requirements. Create a checklist of actions that would require prior approval for your specific grant. Share this checklist with project team members so everyone knows what requires authorization.